I love you.
Gentlefolk, ladies and men, we're glad to have you here again. So please, won't you come on in and sit with us here on the couch? I am the Green Traveler.
And I am the Faceless Leone.
Ooh.
This is Green and Faceless on the Couch, a podcast about movies and television.
That's correct. And we're not technically in the Halloween season yet, but we're leading into it just a tad early, just a little early.
We're getting the pedal to the metal right now.
Hell yeah. Getting our toes wet. We're going in for it, guys. We got another TV Talks for you. I'd actually already seen this, the first few seasons of this show, so
same here.
That's why it was easy for me to watch this, is because I've gotten through it. I know what to expect. It's hard for me to watch new stuff because if it doesn't grab me, I don't want to stick with it. But if I know where it's going, it's easier for me to stick with it.
Very true, very true. So this is going to be a very delayed review. We've decided to do one season of American Horror Story every year, as long as it gets views, I guess.
True, too true.
So we're here with Murder House. A lot of people know about this show. Not a lot of people, though, are out there are super horror fans, so maybe they didn't catch it. They know about the show, but maybe they didn't listen to it. Maybe they listened to our show, and maybe we can convince them one way or the other if they should watch this show.
And I like that you say one way or the other, because again, even though we're planning on doing this for years to come, the tiny little tradition for Halloween to started off with a TV Talks of American Horror Story, that doesn't mean we love this show. It just means it's a horror show that's easy to do in this format.
Yeah, it's an
anthology.
I like the format of this show. It's a 1 year anthology. Every year it's a different story. And I think that's a wonderful idea. Do they pull it off every year? We'll see.
We'll find out. Yeah, and that horror lends itself really well to anthology because as we will talk about soon, coming up in our horror franchise playlist that we're going to start next Monday, or the two big franchises, Friday the 13th and Halloween, were both meant to be anthology film series. It wasn't meant to be, we're going to focus on one killer. We're going to actually, Friday the 13th was like, we're going to talk Friday the 13th and fun superstitions around that. And Halloween is, we're going to do, fun superstitions around the Halloween franchise. It lends itself perfectly to that idea. The problem is, it doesn't always make money.
Yeah.
It's a little easier to do that with television because people are, for whatever fucking reason, people don't want to give 2 hours of their time to a film, and they say that's a huge chunk of time to give, but they will give literal years of their life to television and not think about it. And it blows my mind whenever I talk to people and they watch so much television, but then when I'm just like, why don't you watch movies? And they're just like, well, that's a lot of time to give to a movie. It's like, it's 2 hours, and typically you're going to binge watch that. Like, you're going to end up going through 2 or 3 hours of television.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel like that.
Though. Like, yeah, but people like variety, though, too. Like, somebody will watch one episode from a show and then go to a different episode of a show.
That's really hard for me. Yeah, I can barely keep my mind on that. I can read 3 books at a time, but for a television show, it's hard for me to do that because they just start to blur together after a while.
I just tried to count how many television shows I'm in the middle of.
Oh, man.
And I couldn't do it. And I know some of them dropped off. But see, that's the thing, too. Like, if I'm not interested in something, I'll give it a couple of shots, and then I'll drop off of it. Because, like you said, it is time that I'm putting into it. But I do not currently get to watch that much television. Yeah. Because I'm back working at a theater, and sometimes they like you to be there from 9 in the morning until 9 at night, or 11.
Yeah, it sucks. I've lived that life for most of my high school through college. It was fun. Well, not really college, just most of high school.
We did a couple. Your computer software days were like that, though.
Yeah, they were very much like that. But high school was like actual theater. Like I was constantly working theater jobs in high school. But college, I didn't do much theater. It was just class, just stupid studying in a library. Not fun at all.
No, doesn't sound.
No.
Take me out of my coffin. Take me into the antechamber. I don't know where to go from here. If this is gonna work, it isn't clear. Welcome to the Faceless Pitch.
You brought it around.
Yeah. The only line I wrote down was "Take me out of my coffin." So I have 3 TV shows that I have prepared just for this special edition of the Faceless Pitch. Got some scary things to talk about.
Yay!
First off,
curdle my blood.
Well, they're not all that blood curdling, but the first one I want to talk about is Castlevania, the Netflix animated series. This show, honestly, I'll go out and say it is amazing. It stars Richard Armitage as Trevor Belmont, who is the descendant of monster hunters. In the story, his family has been excommunicated, and so he kind of lives life on the edge, killing a monster here or there, doing enough to afford drink. He eventually meets Saifa Belnades, played by Alejandra Reynoso, and she does they both do a great job. They have great chemistry. And eventually you add a third party to their adventuring troupe named Alucard. And people who know the series, I think, will know more about him. I don't really want to give too much away. He's played by James Callis.
Yeah. Giving it away would be backwards thinking logic.
It would be backwards thinking logic. You're right. So their mission in the first 2 seasons, at least, is to stop Dracula from killing literally every human on Earth because a priest burnt his wife at the stake as a witch.
What an asshole.
Yeah, the priest. Yeah, I agree. Because Dracula was really turning it around. He was like, you know what? Maybe these humans aren't so bad, and I'm going to go travel.
Maybe I should stop impaling them.
I'm going to stop impaling them. I'm going to drink only as much blood as I need, and I'm going to go travel as a human around the world because that's what my wife suggested so that I could get better perspective.
Yeah. Glistening in the sunlight like a beautiful diamond deer.
Like... Yes, the diamond sparkles from Twilight are definitely in this series. Yes,
it's a common vampire trope now.
Yes,
they all glisten in the sunlight.
So in this show, though, for real, if they contact light, they do burst into flames. But he is traveling the world and comes back home, and his wife is dead. And and then he summons all these night creatures with the help of his forge masters, Hector and Isaac, played by Theo James, and Combo McCormick. These guys kind of ended up being, Isaac in particular ended up being my favorite character. And they are humans in Dracula's court.
Interesting.
Yes. So they have, for each their own reason, have a vendetta or dislike of humans. And it's very, very interesting. They're both of their stories and how they intertwine. And I recommend the whole series. I think it's only had 4 seasons so far. That might be the end of it. It had a very solid ending at that. So we'll see. What do you think?
Easy swing for me. I love the Castlevania games. Like, that's by far. I've never beaten them. I've always gotten to the last world, and all of them kind of. I mean, there's some that I've beaten, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I could beat Castlevania 2 if I really tried, because it's just stupid. But it's a hard. I mean, it's pretty fucking hard. It's just stupid hard. But I don't know. Castlevania is one of those like easy loves for me. It's very eerie game, and just making an animation on it, putting it on Netflix, like that's great. I've already seen the first season. For whatever reason, I didn't go back to it. I don't remember why.
I will tell you, the first season, at the end of it, I don't know. It kind of seemed like it ended in the middle of a season. It didn't really tell a complete story. And so it took me a long time to come back to it. It was also like, that's all that there was, I think, when both of us watched it.
Yeah, I do remember watching it when it came out. And then not sticking around for the next season. Yeah, I'll definitely have to go back and give it a swing, and especially being, horror times, it's perfect time to do so. So, easy swing. What's up next? Who's up
next, it's John Wayne Gacy, which sounds like a baseball star. John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. This documentary series. I talked about Sons of Sam last time. Maybe a couple times ago, but this is very much in a similar vein as that, except for it is directly talking about interviews with John Wayne Gacy. Yes, and it was like around that year before his sentence was fulfilled, we'll say. So, John Wayne Gacy is a serial killer, and he targeted younger boys, teenage boys, and they found, I think, 33 bodies in his crawl space and throughout his house after they took him in. Yeah, really, really scary, kind of messed up stuff. Thing about John Wayne Gacy, though, was that he was a well-known member of the community. He was involved in local politics. He had a business, a construction business, and had worked on a lot of people's houses. So this really shook this community, obviously, and all of America, because we are like, oh shit, it could be fucking anybody. His interviews allude that he did not act alone. That's what he is trying to allude to. And, it might be him trying to get a lighter sentence. He very much is an attention seeker. John Wayne Gacy was. Right. So they're not sure if what he's saying is true. But a lot of the things he said about these two young men in particular that he lived with, and this old man who was known in the area and had been a felon at one point, that makes a lot of sense. So it's worth watching, and people have looked into it, but like this old guy had died by the time he was talking about it. And there's this whole like criminal world that he was alluding to in this community. So if you're interested in that, I recommend it, but I will say that it is in production value a little bit less than the Sons of Sam that I talked about before.
Gotcha. It's hard for me on that one. I would probably let this one slide by. Like, docuseries are very difficult for me because it all depends on how they're trying to manipulate you. What views they're trying to get across. Like with serial killers, it seems like it's a very easy one. Like, that seems like, I don't care what the opposing viewpoints are. The dude murdered people, and like, as long as they're not trying to glorify him in any way, then I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll be interested. But like, there's so many docuseries where it's like they're trying to vilify something or someone, and they'll just slip that line in there where it's like, we reached out to them for contact, but they declined to do comment on it. All that means is that they sent them a letter by snail mail a week before the publication of the movie came out, and that the person didn't receive the mail in time to contact them. Like, that's all that means by law. And in so many cases, that's how it happens, is the documentarian sent them something very calm and like, you know, small letters like, hey, do you want to comment on this one thing? And the person looked at it and was like, no, I most certainly do not. And didn't realize that what they were saying was, we're making a documentary that's about to slander the fuck out of you. Do you want to talk about it? So it's like, it's docuseries are just so very hard for me to want to watch, because you have to do your own research to see how much research they did, how much like how loyal they were to the story in a non-biased scenario. But again, being about serial killers, it's very hard to not be non-biased, because serial killers are just monsters. So it's like you should be against them. So it's like, as long as it's against them, I think I might be interested. It does not
by any means paint John Wayne Gacy in a good light. I mean, everybody who's talking is convinced that he killed at least some of those people, and maybe even people out of state, because he traveled quite a bit. There's no reason to suspect that he didn't.
And serial killers are very like intriguing to me, like, and not in a, you know, in a good way, but like in the way that a lot of people listen to, you know, crime podcasts and all that kind of stuff, because it's just, it's kind of scary to think about that stuff happens in real life. And then you're just kind of wondering how people got to that kind of place in their life that they would, you know, do such a thing. So like, it's, I'll say it looks like a strike, but I'm going to let it go by and see what the umpire calls it.
If you are interested in John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise, it is on Peacock. And it was intriguing enough for me to watch, I think, the 6 episodes that it was. Lastly, we have American Horror Stories. Oh, yes. Ooh. Another spinoff. Didn't Scream Queens spin off of this? I don't know. I never watched that.
I don't know. I was going to say, I stopped watching American Horror Story when the last one I watched was the first season Lady Gaga was in. And I don't mention that to say that Lady Gaga was the reason I stopped watching. That was just the last one that I kept up on television.
That was the last one for me too. But
after that year, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to keep up with television shows except for Doctor Who.
This, though, I do wish that I would have caught Roanoke on live, because when I came back to it, I was like, oh man, they actually knew what they were doing with it for this one. We'll talk about Roanoke when we get to it, I guess. That's like, I don't know. That's 6 years from now. Yeah,
7 years from now.
So American Horror Stories, it is American Horror Story, but told so that the anthology is every episode rather than a whole season. And I say that except for the first 2 are a 2-parter, and 3 of the let's see, how many episodes is it? I think it might be 8. It's either 8 or 10 episodes. 3 of them are at Murder House. So you can look forward to that when you come to it. Some reoccurring characters, not very many. So I don't know how to talk about each individual story, but there are some things that I really liked about it. But some, I will say, more than half of the individual stories were just fun enough to keep me watching it. Which, I mean, I guess that's all it needed to be. There was one that was kind of like Videodrome that I thought would, like, the concept was okay, but, you know, it's all kind of stuff that had been done before. The stuff that they did at Murder House I thought was pretty good. I thought it was missing more of those original characters, but, you know, they could do only what they can do, I'm sure. And there's a couple of stories that, like I said, I just don't like that much. Like, there's this one that was a big satire on social media, and these guys decided to post them watching this guy leap off a bridge to his death, which, you know, has happened in real life. And the only good part, and is the best part maybe of the whole series, is that because they pissed him off, they get chased down and murdered one by one by a Danny Trejo Santa Claus. And he was, it is awesome. That is the best part of the whole show. And that episode is worth it just for that. But I don't like the concept of the other characters. But you know what? They all get killed by Santa Claus Danny Trejo. What more do I want from life?
Sounds very much like I Know What You Did Last Summer, where it's like, oops, we killed a guy, and now he's alive and he's killing us.
So this Santa Claus, I'm gonna go ahead and just spoil this whole episode for you guys. I'm sorry if you want to watch it, but he goes around once a year and kills a Santa Claus, like a mall Santa Claus, and takes over their post. And they went to this mall and started pulling pranks at the kids' Santa Claus line. And like, there's some very distasteful stuff that they do. Then Danny Trejo stands up and he's like, I don't know, he might say, "You've been naughty" or something, some bullshit like that. But I didn't even recognize it as Danny Trejo at first. I said, man, that is one weathered Santa Claus that they got up there. Like he looks like he's mean, and because it's just through this beard, right? You know, and he even has like spectacles on. So, but later when he's attacking them, he doesn't have the beard on. And his hair's kind of out of the cap a little bit. It's good. It's good time. That particular part was good. And there's other good moments too, but all in all, I don't know about the series. What do you think?
Same as the last one. I'm gonna let this one slide by, see what the ump calls it. Maybe I'll call it a strikeout, and I'll be like, fuck. But it's whatever. But I mean, like you had asked initially, because we had thought about doing this TV Talks episode, and you were like, should we do American Horror Story, or should we just go ahead and do American Horror Stories? Right. Since this is a new release, it's something we can, something fresh we could talk about. And I looked very briefly into it. So briefly that I didn't know anything about it still, but just enough to like see a little bit of reviews, and was immediately like, no, I'm not interested. Like from the very few things I saw, I was just like, no, I don't. We may get here, way down the line, 10 years from now when we finish American Horror Story and we start this, like maybe. But I don't know. It's just like, again, the anthology sounds good.
It should work.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of this is just like offshoots of everything else. Like they just took storylines that have done well elsewhere and just repurposed them.
I gotta say, some of the stuff that did at Murder House is worth watching. I will say, watch the 3 Murder House episodes if you really love Murder House. And just for Danny Trejo, watch that episode. I'm sure there's other stories that are worth it, and I'm sorry that I'm not giving due credit to them. I was just a little disappointed.
It seems like it. But Murder House wasn't that disappointing. In fact, when it first came out, I remember being very excited about it. Yeah, it was definitely great television and way back in 2011 when we were both starting out in college. I don't think we actually watched this as it was coming out. I think we might have watched it after the fact. I think maybe waited until it was on Netflix or something. Yeah, we might have caught
the first one on Netflix, because I recall trying to watch Asylum right afterwards, and it was kind of difficult because we wanted to get caught up to watch Kevin live, because we watched Kevin live together.
Yeah, I remember that, because it was good. It was good entertainment for a weekly basis. One episode a week, they provided something kind of new. They took it in a few different directions, and it feels real good. When you binge it, sometimes the characters seem like they fluctuate in their emotions, and you're just kind of left like, what happened? Like, you weren't this pissed at the end of the last episode, and now you're real pissed. So it feels a little off, but when you have a whole week between episodes, it worked really well, and it was a lot of fun to watch back in the day. But rewatching it, I picked up a little bit more on Murder House, and I was just like, it was hard to get through at times. I got maybe like 3 or 4 episodes in, then had to take a break, and then I finished the rest of it in one strong go. But like, I don't know, getting back into it was a bit of a rough go, because those first 4 episodes, Like, they're good television, but the thing with television, and again, another reason why it's hard for me to watch it, is it's trying to tell a story on par with what I've seen in movies, but not with the same budget. And so it always just feels a little weaker in its storytelling. And so there's many things with this, the first season, I don't know their budget, but I assume being a new season, it didn't have like the greatest of budgets. It was something to go off of. And they do the best with what they have and how they edit things. But there are just some moments that felt very like student, very amateur, like, and I was just like, in those first few episodes, I mean, it took me a while to get into the style of how they were telling the story, because there's a lot of like weird jump cuts in their edits.
I didn't know
where they'll be in a scene and you're focusing on is it Dylan McDermott or David Duchovny?
I think it's Dylan. I'm sorry.
Dylan McDermott.
Yes.
Yeah, they're two skinny white guys with black hair, and the first names are D names. And I watched X-Files the same time I got introduced to Dylan McDermott, so it's very they get mixed up. I'm sorry, David Duchovny, Dylan McDermott. I'm sorry, you are another Elijah Wood and Daniel Radcliffe pairing, where it's just like you look so similar that it's like I know who each of you are, but recapping your name to the face is just hard for me. But Dylan McDermott, there's moments where you'll be in a scene with him, and he's throughout the show, throughout the season, he's like slightly going more and more insane, like not going crazy, but just having these little mental slips. And in those scenes, you'll have a lot of little jump cuts where the camera will be facing straight on, and he'll be in the center, and then it'll cut, and he'll be in the left, and then it'll cut, and he'll be close up, and it'll be very, very close to his eyes or whatever, and it just keeps cutting very drastically to throw you off. And that's a great horror trope, it's a good thing, but it just took me a while to get into how they were doing that, how they were utilizing all this stuff.
Really the opposite experience on the opening. I got pretty excited right at the beginning because there were certain things that I had forgotten, and I was like, oh, I remember that being a fun element. I'm excited to remember where that goes. Also, though, I did have a moment where I was like, okay, it's getting a little old, but that was more towards the middle for me. I think this story, this whole series and the early parts of it, is that they spread the story over way too many episodes. That's, I think, really most television's problem.
And if we're being honest, not only did they spread the story over too many episodes, they spread way too many stories over way too many episodes.
Yes, and that is because they had to spread it over so many episodes. If they had less episodes, they would have had to bring in less characters. Like, for example, one character that just absolutely didn't have to be in this was the Black Dahlia.
Right, and there's another, while you're looking up the Black Dahlia, there's another character too who I say doesn't really need to be in it, and that's the, I don't remember her name, so if you could look her name up too, it's the wife of the surgeon. Her character literally doesn't provide anything for it other than another person to want one of the two twins. Nora.
Played by Lily Rabe. I love her.
And I love really her. Like, she's great.
Yeah.
And, like, the surgeon is needed. He provides a lot of input into the story through the background. Like, they don't need to focus on him at all, but he is another, person of the house.
But he built a house for her. I don't know. I kind of like that story. But, yeah, they could have done more. I think that particular story, they should have done more with her and the twins. Because once she finally gets the baby, spoiler, she doesn't know what the fuck to do with it. So she gives it back.
Yeah. Yeah, and that happens in the matter of a minute. Like, it's like a 2-minute scene where she's like crying, and then she's like, "You take the baby back." Why did we build this story up? You're 100% right. They should have done so much more with it. But the Black Dahlia, they don't. She's just there.
They don't label her as the Black Dahlia, so I don't actually remember what that character given name was. So I cannot credit you.
Drat.
I apologize. Because I thought, she did an alright job with
they were just trying to pack this house with ghosts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, like, that's great. There are a lot of great ghosts. It's just, after a while, I don't care about all of their B-plots.
The plot that I do care about is mostly with Tate. I think that Evan Peters is just a very interesting actor.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
He just draws me in.
And I'm happy that his career is booming, too, because, like, I love him in American Horror Story, and I love him outside of it. I personally am not a fan of their story with Tate, because they spent the first half of the show building him up and making you kind of like his character and feel sympathy for his character. And then there's a midway point in the season, spoilers everybody, where you find out he's a school shooter. And I do not like glorifying villains like that. Because if it was one thing if he was possessed by the house, which is kind of what they slightly try to imply. Yeah, his mind was affected by it, which that's good. If they had focused on that more and made that more of a thing, then that would have been fine. But all it kind of feels like is he was a messed up kid who got a little more messed up by the house and then went and shot a lot of people. And they have just made me like feel very, sympathetic for this character. And then immediately that shut off. I'm like, all right, I do not feel sympathy for this kid. And they continue trying to make you sympathize with him. And trying to make him slightly a bit of a hero for Tessa Farmiga's character, Violet,
right,
who is the daughter of the family that's living there.
And also, like, their relationship is just entirely problematic, too, because he is obviously older than her. Like, he's supposed to be high school age, but she is, like, 13 or something like that. I don't know actually how old she is, but it's too much of an age disparity.
Right. And not to attach her to her sister, but she is the younger sister of Vera Farmiga from the Conjuring franchise, who had warned her about getting into the horror industry because she's like, if you do this, you will most likely get typecast. Mm-hmm. That is a female actor's fear is like once you become a scream queen, you're always a scream queen. Right. Like, yeah. It took Jamie Lee Curtis a lot to get out of it. And now she's right back. Yeah. Which is kind of interesting.
Well, you know what though? Honestly, her new look in that particular series looks a lot like my grandmother, except for fit and badass. So I enjoy watching it particularly for that reason.
See, I think that's the thing. Is I think being a scream queen is fun. It's just, if it's all you do, it gets tiring. So it's like she was able to, I think Jamie Lee Curtis had fun being the Scream Queen, at least for Halloween 1. We'll talk Halloween 2. But once she was able to break free from that and establish herself as an actor, then now she's like able to do whatever she wants. Right. She looked back and she was like, Scream Queen was a lot of fun.
Huh?
And now
sure it was.
And now I get to be the Scream Queen with the shotgun. Yeah. So
she really is badass in that particular movie. Scary, but...
yeah. But I agree with you though. Tate's relationship with Violet is just, it's very problematic, and I do not like his character, and I like that he gets focused, and I wish they had focused more on his story and more on vilifying him.
See, I do understand what you're saying about the sympathy, but honestly, I feel like there's a bit of a balance there, because he does just the stupidest, most obscene things throughout the show. Yeah. So I do not like Tate as a person. I just think he's a very interesting character, because Dylan McDermott at one point it says, like, you are only able to talk to me like this and convince me like this because you're a psychopath and a magnificent actor because of that. So I think that sympathy is kind of important for his character to show that that's not who he really is. He is this monster character, even if he seems like he doesn't want to be.
Right, but then juxtapose that with the scene where Violet takes sleeping pills. Right. And he tries desperately to save her life by shoving her in a shower, trying to get her to vomit the pills out. Like, I agree with you. They're trying to attempt a balance, but then they have these emotional scenes where he is, in a way, trying to be a hero, trying to save her life, trying to keep her from being locked in this house forever. I don't know. And at the same time, there's a lot of under the covers plans by him to keep her in the house forever. So that they do try to find the balance, and I guess it's up to the viewer whether they find it or not. For me, they did not find it because it felt like heavily sympathetic towards this character.
It's fucked up, but I do think what they might have been trying to accomplish at the time is that maybe we need to look out for the warning signs of those people and get them help before they get to that point. Because
there is a good mental health message.
They are human. There's something in their brain that switches or whatever that brings them to that point. So I think stories like this are important, and it is important to realize that those people are human.
Right. I don't know why it's such a sensitive subject, because it's like I've never personally...
we were in high school when it started becoming a really common occurrence.
Common thing. Yeah, because Stephen King has a short story called Rage, which is about a school shooter. And I remembered reading that, and it was like... It's very haunting because it's another one of those where he's trying to build up the story, what got them there. And naturally, how these stories occur, it's sympathizing, it's sympathetic. Right. You feel for the traumatic events that lead these kids to these kind of situations, because it usually is traumatizing and out of their control. But yeah, it's rough. It's rough to handle, and just how they handled it in a way kind of felt just more dramatizing and glorifying. In my opinion,
I understand what you're saying, 100%.
Yeah.
So there are definitely some other people very much worth mentioning. I mean, I don't think Connie Britton continues with the show after this, but she plays the mother. She is Vivian Harmon, married to who we keep on name dropping, Dylan McDermott, Dr. Ben Harmon. They have a very tumultuous relationship, I'll say. Nothing, no physical abuse, but there is definitely some psychological abuse going on there.
Yeah, Ben's character suffers from infidelity, and I don't know if sex addiction, honestly, but
yeah, probably.
Yeah, somewhere along those lines. I like that storyline. That storyline's great. Watching these two characters fluctuate between trying to save their marriage and just completely wanting to call it quits. That's where it kind of feels like it fluctuates a little too much if you're binge watching it, because it'll end with them on a good note, and then it'll start off with them on a bad note, and it's just like. But at the same time, that is just a marriage and their situation. You know, there are days where you'll go to sleep and you're like, we can make this work. And then you'll wake up and you'll just feel a little glum and be like, I don't know if I want to keep waking up next to this guy who's cheating on me, I like them dealing with that, but him as Ben as a psychiatrist is, oh man,
yeah,
he is not a good psychiatrist.
Not a good psychiatrist. Well, the house doesn't help, so I don't think we really even talked about the house. So they moved there from I think New York is where they came from, and they move all the way across the country to LA. Into Murder House. And what Murder House is a place where they keep on selling it even though everybody gets murdered in the house. And they become ghosts.
And it's why you should do research on your house before you move in, everybody.
Our house, I found out pretty close to closing that there used to be like this huge drug dealer here, and somebody in the neighborhood broke into this house, and beat the shit out of him and stole his stuff. But they didn't kill him.
It didn't kill him.
He almost died, I think.
Yeah. But he doesn't haunt it
at the very least. He doesn't haunt it, but his blood is in the floors, I'm sure.
Yeah, I personally chose my apartment because I asked the landlords, how many people have died here? And she's like, oh, we got this one that's been, vacated for 13 years. Because, 18 people were murdered there. And I was like, nice. I could be number 19.
Oh,
I'll take it.
Oh, 19.
Yeah, it's haunted out the wall. Yeah, it's haunted as fuck, man. It's so
Is this true? I mean...
This is... No, not at all.
Oh, Jesus.
I do love haunted houses and all that kind of stuff, and I would certainly love, like, anybody who watches this show or listens to this show, that is, knows I love horror. Mm-hmm. That is my genre. I like to be frightened, even though it terrifies me to be frightened, and I do not like it in the moment. I love being frightened. It is such a good adrenaline rush. So it's like, it would be so much fun for me one day to plot out a trip across America of all like the big haunted sites.
Carve
and
like 10 years off of your life, man.
I'm not doing anything with them. I'll just be old and crippled.
Well, I think there's 3 more characters that I definitely want to mention. And that is Jessica Lange, who has a lot of interest in the murder house.
Easily the best actor they have on board.
Oh yeah,
she
plays
talented.
Constance Langdon. Yeah, she's amazing, and she runs with the show for quite some time. That's, I think, what really kept us coming back was her.
Yeah, her and Evan Peters, really, I think.
But also, I really love Frances Conroy as Moira O'Hara. Mm-hmm. There's this cool thing that they do with her because she's one of the ghosts. When a man is in the room, or people who are sexually interested in women, she becomes Alexandra Breckenridge, a younger version of herself that is extremely flirtatious. So her and Dr. Ben get in some precarious situations. That's a fun storyline. I like that storyline. And Moira and Constance's relationship is also pretty great.
It's very interesting, and I think Frances Conroy is in 6 Feet Under.
Maybe
it's either a Showtime or an HBO show that I watched a long time ago about a family that runs a mortician, a mortuary. Thank you.
Home. Yeah, those are different.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. That's it. I think it's a funeral. I think it's actually a pairing because I think the guy who goes on to play Dexter, I think he's the business brother, and then the other brother is the mortician. I might be completely wrong, but it's a very good show. It's a very interesting show. But I think that's where I first got introduced to Frances Conroy, and she was kind of another reason I kept coming back to this show because I love her as well. Like she's
really good,
just very, and she plays off everybody really well. Really but like, oh my god, Jessica Lange.
I do want to talk about Dennis O'Hare, though, playing Larry Harvey. He does for this series some really good stuff. He's always something that is, what I want to say, it's always a little bit of body horror with him. Just a little bit.
Right.
And in this, half of his body is burnt very badly. It's skin graft. It's all, the afterwards. It's years after. And he has trouble getting around, and he's constantly trying to warn Dr. Ben about the house. He has other motives too. I think his story is also interesting, but more so I just really like how Dennis O'Hare plays the character.
Right, and I like how they use his character too, because his character is kind of just a pawn for the game. Definitely. And it's very interesting. And, he's good. And I think if we're going to mention him, we should also, at the very least, mention 2 other characters 3 other characters, but I can't remember one of their names.
Okay.
But Kate Mara, played by who plays Hayden. Yeah, she is the lady that Ben was infidelious with.
That's right.
And her character is very attached. Like, she is, that's her, like, her kind of, like, psychosis. I don't really want to say that, but, like, she's very attached to Ben.
Yeah. For very legitimate reasons, though, I will say. I don't want to give it away, but yes, there's a very good reason why she has an attachment to him.
Right. And I like how that develops. I like how... Kate Mara is just a great actor, too.
Yeah.
She went on to House of Cards from here, and that's what got me into watching House of Cards. So, like, it's very interesting, and I like her a lot. Zachary Quinto and his husband in this are the other 2 characters I want to talk about. Because, Zachary Quinto, first introduction for me was Heroes. So finding out he was in American Horror Story was a lot of fun because I fucking love his villain in Heroes, at least in the first season. And Zachary Quinto plays Chad. I don't remember who Chad's husband is, but they're just another married couple that has have a very contentious and rocky relationship that they bought the house hoping they could make it last, bring it back, bring back the beauty of their love. But the house does not want that.
No, it doesn't.
It wants inner fighting.
It definitely follows the trope where they kill off their gays, even though they're still in the story. So I guess it plays with the trope, maybe. I don't know. But
I mean, to be fair, I think the showrunners are Ryan Murphy and Brad Falchuk. They're very LGBTQ friendly, so they at least have that storyline in here.
Well,
even if they do just kill them off.
Playing with the trope is a problem because it then acknowledges the trope, and then people are like, "Oh, let's not do this trope."
Yeah, I'm just happy that normally when you see this kind of like a haunted house, it's always husband wife. Every owner was husband wife. So I'm happy that finally we had like one horror that was like husband slipped in there somewhere. This is nice.
I will say that they do the same thing in the Murder House episodes in American Horror Stories. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, I do like their characters, though. That's not as well touched upon. It's one of the relationships that gets pushed into the background more. But it provides some very eerie entertainment. There's one costume in particular that comes from them that I love its involvement in the first season. It's the iconic one, if you guys know about. And it's still iconic
also in American Horror Stories.
Ooh, good. And in Pulp Fiction.
You ready for closing statements?
Yeah, and I'll throw my last thing into the closing statement because I'll start with I give it 2.5 stars. And overall, it's a very good and enjoyable show. It just has some severe rocky things to it that it's not my favorite season of what I have seen. I remember being impressed by more later on. But the one thing I do want to give severe, heavy props, and we'll talk about it even more as we go on with this playlist, is the opening theme. The introduction theme is incredible. It's created by the music, I believe. No, the sequence is created by Kyle Cooper and his company Prologue, which created the Walking Dead opening sequence. Oh, cool. And the music comes from sound designer Cesar Davila Irizarry and musician Charlie Clouser. And I just want to give all of them people credit because I fucking love the opening introduction to American Horror Story. At least season 1. Yeah. They change it for each season, but like
they do.
It's eerie, it's scary, it just immediately gets under your skin. One of the biggest opening introductions is Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock, where the title comes in Psycho and everything's jarred and the text jerking back and forth arrhythmically, and it's for like 1950s, 1960s. That was very unnerving.
Right.
And if you're gonna open up a horror movie or horror TV show or something, it's great if you're able to get under the skin before you show off any fucking story. Right. And the introduction to American Horror Story is precisely that. It's very unnerving, very eerie, and so applause to those guys because they fucking knocked it out of the park.
I agree, 100%. And you know what else happens in American Horror Stories?
What's that?
You can expect that same music.
Nice.
But different for each episode. That is one thing that I really do applaud it for. So even if you just go on YouTube and watch the clips for all of the episodes, some of them are really interesting. Some of them are not that scary at all, but still an interesting take. Like, particular, there's one episode centered around a drive-thru, and it's a lot of like 1950s stuff, and they make it a little like that early rock and roll clanging sound,
Nice. That's so cool.
This show, though, American Horror Story, I will give a face. Not for Murder House, anyways. So Murder House, I think, was their iconic start. There's a reason why they returned to it 3 times in their spinoff, and I think it's alluded to in later seasons as well. They also there's this line, I think, that Jessica Lange says that sets up like the next 3 seasons. She talks about an insane asylum. Oh, no, it wasn't her. It was the other character that is always in the series. Sarah Paulson, yes. She plays a psychic in this. I can't remember their name. But yeah, she...
underutilized in this season.
Yes, definitely. 100%. But she played the character so well that she becomes pretty much a main character in each season afterwards. But whatever. She says there's these places around the world like where terrible things happen, like asylums. She mentions covens in the same statement and other stuff. And I was like, holy shit. So they knew what they wanted to do. At least they had an outline somewhere.
They followed some rule.
Yeah.
I like it.
So, yeah, a face for this season. I do think I agree with you. There are other ones that I like more, but it just seemed like such a great start when we first watched it.
Yeah, I mean, coming from the creators of Glee, this is not at all what I expected, so I was so happy. I'm not a huge fan of Glee. Like, I like it. I think it's a good show. It's just... or two. Yeah, I'm not like, unless it's Ninja Sex Party covering a song, I'm not too hip on covers.
Right.
And, I mean, you can do a good cover. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with covers. It's just, I usually want to hear the original. And the Glee cast, I don't think, ever delivered a cover that surpassed anything for me.
No.
But, like, it's so funny to think that the Glee creators went on to do American Horror Story.
Well, shall we adjourn, close the door, if you will, behind us on Murder House?
Yes, let's move away from it. Let's move to a new home, all the way across the country to New York.
We will see you next year with Asylum.
Yes, we will.
Unless we get see you next week. Yeah.
I was going to say, unless we get overwhelming messages like, do not continue American Horror Story next year.
Stop trashing my favorite show. You 2.5 stars.
You fuck. Well, I've been the green face. Wait. I've been the green traveler.
Face. He's the green face, and I am the blue face.
And you're the less traveler.
I'm the less traveler. Safe travels, and I'm the Faceless Leon. I just wanted to get that. Green and Faceless on the Couch is a proud production of Fiction Works 19. If you like the show, please show your support by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Like, follow, subscribe, wherever you might listen. We also now have a Patreon account. If you feel so inclined to support us in a financial manner, please become a patron by visiting patreon.com/greenandfaceless. You can also find more information about us on our Facebook account or on the Fiction Works 19 Instagram account. Thank you so much for listening.